The emergency lights painted everything red inside the bridge of the Pale Sanctuary. Captain Limseth's hands shook as he gripped the edge of his command chair. Outside the viewing window, stars stretched endlessly in every direction, beautiful and cold and uncaring. "Life support is failing," his second officer reported. Her voice cracked with fear. "We have maybe 30 hours, 40 if we shut down non-essential sections. 40,000 souls aboard this ship, 40,000 Velthirans who had escaped their dying sun only to die here in the empty dark between stars." Limseth closed his eyes and tried not to think about the children in the lower decks. The engine explosion had come without warning. One moment they were traveling through fold space, and the next, reality had torn them back into normal space with a violence that shattered half their systems. The engineering team said the main drive was gone, completely destroyed. There would be no fixing it, not out here, not without a starbase. "Send the distress call," Limseth said quietly. His crew turned to look at him. They all knew what that meant. They were far beyond Galactic Council space, out in the unmapped regions where few ships traveled. A distress call might bring help, or it might bring something worse. Pirates, raiders, species that saw weakness as an invitation. But what choice did they have? "Send it on all frequencies," Limseth ordered. "Broad spectrum. If anyone is listening, I want them to hear us." The communications officer nodded and began working. Within minutes, the Pale Sanctuary was screaming into the void, begging for rescue. All they could do now was wait. 3 days. Away in a completely different section of space, Una was bored. She sat at her station on the bridge of the Tajin's Reach, monitoring communication channels that never had anything interesting on them. They had been mapping this sector for 6 months now. 6 months of empty space, dead rocks, and absolutely nothing happening. She took a sip of her coffee and made a face. It had gone cold again. She was about to get up and make a fresh cup when her board lit up with activity. "Captain," she called out, sitting up straight. "I'm picking up a distress signal." Captain Daehyun looked up from his reports. He was a calm man, steady and reliable, which was why Colonial Survey had given him this mission. "What kind of signal?" "Unknown origin," Una said, her fingers dancing across her console. "Not human. The format is. Wait, I think it's using Galactic Council protocols. It's an alien ship, sir, and they're in serious trouble." Within seconds, the rest of the bridge crew was alert. Daehyun walked over to Una's station and looked at her screens. "Can you get a translation?" "Working on it." Una fed the signal through their translation matrix. The Galactic Council used a standard language for official communications, and humanity had learned it after first contact 8 years ago. The words began to appear on her screen, and her heart sank as she read them. "They've lost main power. Life support failing. 40,000 people aboard. They're dying, Captain." The bridge went quiet. 40,000. That was more than the entire population of some of the smaller human colonies. "Where are they?" Daehyun asked. "Sending coordinates now." Una transferred the data to the navigation station. "They're 3 days away at maximum burn." 3 days. Una looked at the translated distress message again. They had maybe 30 hours of life support left, maybe 40 if they were lucky. 3 days was too long, but Daehyun didn't hesitate. "Minho, what can we do with the engines?" The chief engineer looked up from his station. Minho was young but brilliant, the kind of person who could make a ship do things it wasn't supposed to do. "If we push them past safety limits, ignore all the warnings, and pray to every god humanity has ever invented. Maybe 2.5 days. "Do it," Daehyun said immediately. "Captain, we'll burn out half the systems. The repairs will take weeks, maybe months. There are 40,000 people dying out there, Minho. Set course and push those engines as hard as they'll go." Minho grinned, despite the situation. "You got it, Captain." The Tajin's Reach changed course, and its engines began to burn brighter than they were ever designed to. The ship shuddered with the effort, but it held together. Humans built their ships tough. They had learned that lesson early in space exploration. "All hands, this is the captain," Daehyun announced over the ship-wide intercom. "We're responding to a distress call. We have an alien vessel with 40,000 souls aboard and they're running out of time. I need everyone at their best. Engineering, keep us moving. Medical, prepare for mass casualties. Security, ready for anything. We don't know what we're flying into, but we're going to help those people. That's what we do. In the medical bay, Dr. Salmon started pulling supplies and converting storage areas into emergency treatment spaces. She had no idea what alien biology would be like, but she would figure it out. She always did. In the security office, Hyun checked weapons and armor. She hoped they wouldn't need any of it. But hope wasn't a strategy. Her team would be ready for threats. In engineering, Minho and his team worked frantically to keep the engines from tearing themselves apart. The ship groaned and rattled, but it kept accelerating. And on the bridge, Yuna kept the distress signal on her screen. She watched it like somehow that would keep those aliens alive. "Hold on," she whispered to people who couldn't hear her. "We're coming." 2 days passed in a blur of constant work. The crew of the Tajin's Reach barely slept. They took turns in short shifts, always someone awake, always someone watching. The ship complained constantly about what they were doing to it, alarms beeping warnings that everyone ignored. "We're not going to make it in time," Yuna said quietly to Daehyun during the second night. The distress signal had gone silent hours ago. Either the aliens had shut it down to save power or they were already dead. "We're going to try anyway," Daehyun replied. On the third day they arrived. The Taijin's Reach dropped out of FTL with a violent shudder that made the entire ship groan. Minho would have a lot of repair work ahead of him, but none of that mattered when they saw what was on their screens. The alien ship was enormous, easily 5 times the size of the Taijin's Reach. It was beautiful in design, elegant curves and graceful lines. It was also dying. Dark, silent, venting atmosphere from multiple breaches in its hull. No lights, no power readings. "Life signs?" Daehyun asked. The science officer worked his instruments. "I'm detecting them. Thousands. But they're weak. Captain, if there are 40,000 people on that ship, they're barely alive." Daehyun stood up. "Hyun, get your team ready. Minho, Taeyang, Nari, you're with me. We're going over there." "Sir, we should send drones first," Hyun protested. "We don't know what's over there. We don't have time for caution. Those people are dying right now." Daehyun headed for the airlock. "Yuna, keep trying to establish communication. If anyone's still conscious over there, let them know help has arrived." The boarding team suited up in their heavy EVA gear. The suits were bulky and powerful, designed to let humans work in any environment. As they prepared, Daehyun looked at his team. "Remember, we're here to help. These aliens are probably terrified. Move carefully. Be calm. Show them we're friends." They crossed to the alien ship in a small shuttle. Up close, the damage was even worse. Whatever had happened to this vessel, it had been catastrophic. They found an airlock that still had some power and forced it open. The moment they stepped inside the alien ship, Daehyun knew this was going to be complicated. Everything was smaller than human standard. The corridors were narrow. The ceilings were low. It was cold, far colder than any human would find comfortable. "Spread out," Daehyun ordered. "Look for survivors." They moved through the dark corridors, their suit lights cutting through the shadows. The ship was a tomb, silent, still. But somewhere in this darkness, thousands of aliens were clinging to life, and the humans had come to save them. The first thing that struck Daehyun as strange was the silence. A ship with 40,000 people should have noise, even in an emergency. Voices, movement, something. But the pale sanctuary was as quiet as a graveyard. His team moved through the narrow corridors, their heavy magnetic boots clanking against the metal floor. Every sound they made seemed too loud in the darkness. Hyun had her weapon ready, but Daehyun hoped they wouldn't need it. These were refugees, not enemies. "Captain, I'm reading life signs behind this door," Taeyang called out. The young engineer had his scanner pointed at a sealed bulkhead. "Maybe 30 or 40 of them. They're alive but not moving much. Can you get it open?" Daehyun asked. Taeyang studied the door mechanism. It was designed completely different from human technology, but the basics were universal. "Give me 2 minutes." While Taeyang worked, Nari examined the corridor around them. This ship is beautiful, she said softly. Look at these walls. The way everything curves. They built this like art. She was right. Even in the darkness and cold, even damaged and dying, the alien ship was elegant. Humans built things to be tough and practical. These aliens built things to be beautiful. Got it, Taeyang announced. The door began to open with a soft hiss. What happened next, Daehyun would remember for the rest of his life. The door slid open to reveal a packed compartment full of aliens. They were small, maybe half the size of an adult human. Thin and delicate-looking, with large eyes and pale skin. They huddled together in groups wrapped in reflective blankets, barely moving in the cold. When the door opened and the humans appeared in the doorway, wearing their bulky suits and carrying bright lights, the aliens reacted with pure terror. Several of them screamed. Others tried to push themselves further back into the compartment, as far from the humans as possible. A few simply collapsed, overcome with fear. No, we're here to help, Daehyun called out, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. But his voice, amplified by the suit speakers, only seemed to frighten them more. On the Taejan's reach, Yuna was desperately trying to establish communication. She had been working on the alien language for the past 2 days, using every linguistic database humanity had access to. Now she fed her translation program into the suit speakers. Please do not be afraid, the mechanical voice said in the Galactic Council language. We received your distress call. We are here to rescue you. The aliens stared at the humans with wide, terrified eyes. Finally, one of them stepped forward. He was older than the others, his movements slow and painful. He spoke in a weak voice, and Yuna's translation program turned his words into English. You're predators, the alien whispered. You come from a death world. I can see it in how you move, how you're built. Daehyun pulled off his helmet, hoping his face would be less frightening than the suit. The cold air of the ship hit him immediately, making him gasp. It was like stepping into a freezer. But he forced himself to smile. My name is Daehyun. I'm the captain of the ship that answered your distress call. We're going to get you out of here, all of you. The old alien stared at Daehyun's face, at his forward-facing eyes, at his strong jaw and visible teeth. Everything about human biology screamed predator to a species that had evolved with no natural enemies. You'll kill us, another alien said. Or enslave us. Why else would Deathworlders answer our call? Because you needed help, Daehyun said simply. That's all the reason we need. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then a child alien, small enough to fit in a human's arms, broke away from the group and walked toward Daehyun. Before anyone could stop her, she reached out and touched his hand. You're warm, she said in wonder. So warm. Daehyun knelt down, making himself smaller and less threatening. We're going to help you, he said gently. I promise. The old alien who had spoken first moved forward. Up close, Daehyun could see he was in bad shape. Hypothermia, oxygen deprivation, dehydration. Without help soon he would die. I am Limzeth, captain of this vessel, the alien said. If you truly mean to help us, please. The children first. And the injured. They have the least time left. We'll take everyone, Daehyun promised, starting now. What followed was 12 hours of frantic work. The human crew of the Taejan's Reach threw themselves into the rescue with an intensity that amazed the Veltherans. They didn't stop. They didn't rest. They simply worked. Minho and his engineering team performed miracles. They connected human power cells to the alien ship's systems, jury-rigging connections between completely incompatible technologies. They welded hull breaches, rerouted power, and kept life support running through pure determination and creative problem-solving. In one section of the ship, Nari found herself alone with no power tools, facing a collapsed bulkhead that trapped 20 Veltherans on the other side. She could hear them calling for help through the metal. So she did what any human would do. She grabbed the twisted metal with her suit's powered gloves and pulled. The Veltherans on the other side heard the sound of metal screaming as it bent. Then they saw the bulkhead tear open, and a human stood there, breathing hard, the metal still in her hands. Come on, Nari said, reaching for them. Let's get you out of here. They followed her in stunned silence. On the medical side, Soman faced an impossible challenge. She had 40,000 patients, none of them human, and no idea how their biology worked. Her medical databases had basic information on a few Galactic Council species, but these Veltherans were new to human knowledge. So she learned by doing. She started with the most critical cases, the ones who were minutes from death. She checked their vital signs, compared them to what little information she had, and made her best guesses. Some of those guesses were wrong, but most of them were right, and aliens who should have died started to stabilize. A young Velthiran doctor named Prinax watched her work with growing amazement. When he finally worked up the courage to approach her, he asked the question that had been bothering him for hours. "How are you still working? You started 16 hours ago. Your people haven't stopped for rest. You haven't eaten. You barely drink water. How?" Soman looked up from her patient, surprised by the question. "Because people need help," she said, as if that explained everything. "We'll rest when everyone is safe, but you must be exhausted. In pain. Your body must be screaming for rest," Soman shrugged. "Yeah, probably. But humans are pretty good at ignoring that kind of thing when we need to. Earth taught us how to push through discomfort." "Earth," Prinax repeated. He had looked up humanity in the Galactic Council databases earlier. What he had read had terrified him. "Your homeworld is classified as a Class 12 death world. The gravity alone would crush most species. The temperature swings would kill us in hours. And you're telling me your body is in pain right now, but you simply ignore it?" "You get used to it," Soman said with a tired smile. She went back to her patient. Prinax stood there trying to understand. These humans were impossible. They worked without rest in conditions that should incapacitate them. They lifted debris that should require machinery. They moved through damaged sections of the ship that were open to near vacuum, protected only by their suits, treating it like a minor inconvenience. In another section, Hyun and her security team were carrying Velthiran survivors to the airlocks where shuttles waited. The Velthirans weighed almost nothing to human hands, light as children in the low gravity. Hyun found herself gently picking up a family of 4 and carrying them all at once, the parents too weak to walk and the children too frightened to let go of them. "It's okay," she told them softly. "You're safe now. I've got you." The father Velthiran looked up at her face, at the human who could carry his entire family without effort. "What are you?" he whispered. "Just someone who wants to help," Hyun replied. Back on the bridge of the Tajan's Reach, Yuna coordinated the entire operation. She tracked every shuttle, every rescue team, every survivor being brought aboard. The cargo bay was already packed with Velthirans, and they were converting every spare space into emergency shelters. "Yuna, we have a problem." Minho's voice came over the comms. "The alien ship's structural integrity is failing. We've got maybe 2 hours before it breaks apart." "Understood." Yuna checked her lists. They had rescued 37,000 Velthirans so far, 3,000 still aboard the dying ship. She opened a channel to all rescue teams. All teams were on a clock. 2 hours. "Let's move faster." The response was immediate. Every human on that alien ship pushed themselves harder. They ran through corridors. They carried multiple survivors at once. They took risks that would have horrified any safety inspector. And slowly, steadily, the number of survivors still on the pale sanctuary dropped. 2,000. 1,000. 500. With 30 minutes to spare, Daehyun carried the last Velthiran child off the dying ship. Behind him, the pale sanctuary was groaning and cracking, metal screaming as structural beams failed. They made it back to the Tajan's Reach, just as the alien ship began to break apart. Everyone stood at the viewing windows and watched in silence as the beautiful vessel came apart in a shower of debris and frozen atmosphere. 40,000 Velthirans had been on that ship. 40,000 Velthirans were now safe aboard the Tajan's Reach, not a single life lost. Limseth stood next to Daehyun, both of them staring out at the destruction. Yuna saw them first on the long-range sensors. 3 ships moving fast, heading straight for their position. Her blood went cold when she saw the identification markers. "Captain, we have incoming," she called out. 3 vessels. Krell signatures. The bridge went quiet. Everyone in space knew about the Krell. They were raiders, pirates, the nightmare of the outer regions. They attacked weak ships, took slaves, stole cargo, and left destruction in their wake. The Galactic Council had tried to stop them for decades, but the Krell were too strong, too vicious. Most species simply ran when Krell ships appeared. Daehyun moved to Yuna's station and looked at her screens. The 3 Krell ships were bigger than the Tajan's Reach, and their weapons were significantly more powerful. "How long until they reach us?" 20 minutes at their current speed. Daehyun activated the ship-wide intercom. "All crew battle stations. This is not a drill. We have Krell raiders incoming." In the cargo bay, panic spread through the Velthiran refugees. They knew the Krell. Everyone in the galaxy knew the Krell. The raid, the kill, the enslave. And now 3 of their ships were coming. Limseth found Daehyun on the bridge. "Captain, you must run. Save your ship. We'll surrender to them. Better some survive than all die." Daehyun looked at the old Velthiran with surprise. "You think we're going to abandon you? You have no choice. 3 Krell ships against 1 survey vessel. You cannot win this fight." "Maybe not," Daehyun admitted. "But we're not leaving. You don't understand. The Krell are warriors. They're hunters. They've been raiding the frontier for generations. No single ship has ever defeated them." Daehyun smiled, and there was something cold in that smile. "They've never fought humans before." Hyun arrived on the bridge with her security team, all of them armed and armored. "What's the plan, Captain?" "We protect our people," Daehyun said simply. "All of them." The Krell ships closed the distance quickly. When they were in communication range, a message came through. Yuna translated it, though the meaning was clear enough. "They're demanding we surrender the Velthiran refugees and our ship," she said. "They say if we comply, they'll let us leave in an escape pod." "How generous of them," Minho muttered from his engineering station. Daehyun opened a return channel. "This is Captain Daehyun of the Terran vessel Taijin's Reach. The refugees aboard this ship are under our protection. Turn back now." There was a long pause. Then the Krell response came back, and even through the translation they could hear the laughter. "Terrans? The little Deathworlders who just joined the Council? You have no idea what you're facing. Surrender now or die." Daehyun's response was calm and clear. "No." The Krell ships accelerated to attack speed. In the cargo bay, Velthiran refugees huddled together, parents holding their children, everyone preparing for the end. They had been rescued from certain death only to die anyway at the hands of raiders. But then they felt the Taijin's Reach change. The engines powered up to combat levels. The ship turned to face the approaching Krell vessels, and every Velthiran who could see a screen watched in amazement as the human ship didn't run. It stood its ground. "Shields at maximum," Minho reported. "Weapons powered and ready. Though I should mention, Captain, we're a survey ship. We're not exactly built for combat." "We're built by humans," Daehyun replied. "That's enough." The first Krell ship opened fire and space lit up with weapons fire. The Taijin's Reach rocked as the shots hit their shields, alarms blaring across the bridge. But the shields held. Humans over-engineered everything, building in redundancy after redundancy because space was dangerous and equipment failure meant death. "Return fire," Daehyun ordered. The Taijin's Reach might have been a survey vessel, but it was armed. Every human ship was armed, even the civilian ones. Earth had taught humanity an important lesson early. The universe was not safe, and being prepared was the difference between survival and extinction. Human weapons, designed with millennia of warfare experience, struck the lead Krell ship with frightening accuracy. The Krell shields flickered and failed in sections. The second volley punched through their hull and the Krell ship began to vent atmosphere. On the Krell command ship, the raid leader stared at his screens in disbelief. One of his ships damaged by a single survey vessel. It was impossible. It was humiliating. "All ships, attack formation," he snarled. "Destroy them." The 3 Krell vessels spread out, trying to surround the Taijin's Reach. It was a classic predator tactic, one that had worked thousands of times before. But they had never fought humans before. Humans were predators too. The Taijin's Reach moved in ways that should have torn it apart. It spun and rolled, dodging weapons fire while simultaneously returning shots with deadly precision. The human crew worked with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic, everyone knowing their role, everyone moving in perfect sync. Yuna managed communication and sensors. Minho pushed the engines past their safety limits. Hyun coordinated defensive systems. And Daehyun stood at the center of it all, calm and focused, calling out orders in a steady voice. "Krell Ship 2, coming around our port side. Mio, give me a tight turn. Yuna, I need targeting solutions. Hyun, redistribute shields to port." The crew responded instantly. The Taijin's Reach spun in a maneuver that would have killed most alien species from the G-forces alone. But humans were built for a high-gravity world. Their bodies designed to withstand forces that would liquefy frailer species. The second Krell ship, expecting an easy target, suddenly found itself in the Taijin's Reach's firing solution. Human weapons tore into its shields at point-blank range. In the cargo bay, the Velthirans watched the battle on screens, barely able to believe what they were seeing. The humans were fighting, actually fighting, against 3 Krell ships, and they weren't losing. Prynax, the young Velthiran doctor, pulled up everything he could find about human military history on his datapad. What he read made his hands shake. Humans had been at war with themselves for their entire existence. They had refined violence into an art form over thousands of years. They were warriors born on a world that tried to kill them every single day. And now they were using all that experience to protect aliens they had met less than a day ago. "They're insane," Prynax whispered. "No," Limseth said, watching the battle with wide eyes. "They're loyal. They said they would protect us, and they meant it." The 3rd Krell ship attempted a boarding action, launching assault pods toward the Taijin's reach. It was a desperate move, but the Krell were starting to panic. Nothing was going according to plan. The assault pods attached to the human ship's hull, and Krell warriors began cutting through. They were large creatures, powerful and aggressive, armed with weapons designed to terrorize and subjugate. They expected frightened survey crew. Maybe scientists, easy prey. Instead, they met Hyun and her security team. The Krell burst through the hull into a cargo corridor and found themselves facing humans in combat armor. For a moment, both sides stared at each other. The Krell saw what looked like manageable opponents. Smaller than them, certainly. Nothing special. Then Hyun moved, and the Krell learned what human combat speed looked like. She crossed the distance between them in less than a second, moving with a predator's grace and speed. Her first strike shattered a Krell warrior's weapon. Her second sent him flying into a bulkhead with enough force to dent the metal. The other Krell attacked, but they were slow compared to humans. Humanity had evolved chasing prey across endless plains, tracking animals for hours, throwing spears at moving targets. Human reaction times, honed over millions of years of hunting, made them terrifyingly fast in combat. The fight lasted less than 3 minutes. When it was over, 6 Krell warriors were unconscious or dead, and Hyun's team hadn't suffered a single serious injury. "Boarding party neutralized," Hyun reported over the comms, her voice barely elevated. "Hull breach sealed. No casualties on our side." On the bridge, Daehyun allowed himself a small smile. "Thank you, Hyun. Yuna, let me talk to the Krell ships." Yuna opened a channel. Daehyun looked at the screen, knowing the Krell were watching him too. "This is your last warning," he said. "Leave now, or we will destroy all 3 of your ships. You came here expecting easy prey, but we're not prey. We're humans, and we protect our people." For a long moment, there was silence. The Krell raid leader looked at his tactical displays. 1 ship heavily damaged, 1 ship with its boarding party wiped out, and a human vessel that seemed impossible, that moved and fought like nothing they had ever encountered. The Krell were predators, but they weren't stupid. They knew when to retreat. "This isn't over, humans," the Krell leader transmitted. "We will remember this. We will return with more ships. Then we'll be ready," Daehyun replied. The 3 Krell ships turned and burned away at maximum speed, limping back toward whatever hole they had crawled out of. The Taijin's reach let them go, too damaged to pursue even if Daehyun had wanted to. As the Krell disappeared from sensors, the bridge crew finally relaxed. Alarms were still blaring. Damage reports were flooding in, but they were alive. Everyone was alive. In the cargo bay, the Velthiran refugees erupted in cheers. They swarmed around any human they could find, touching them, thanking them, crying with relief and joy. These impossible Deathworlders had faced down the Krell, had fought them, had won. Limseth found Daehyun again. The Taijin's reach limped through space like a wounded animal. Minho and his engineering team worked around the clock, patching hull breaches, rerouting power, keeping the engines running. The ship was designed to carry 50 humans comfortably. Now it housed 50 humans and 40,000 Velthirans. Every corridor was packed. Every cargo bay was full. Even the observation decks had been converted into living spaces, and they still had 2 weeks of travel before they reached the nearest Galactic Council station. "We're going to make it," Minho told Daehyun on the 3rd day. "But this ship is never going to be the same. We've pushed her way past anything she was designed for. She held together when we needed her," Daehyun replied, patting a bulkhead affectionately. "That's all I ask." In the converted cargo bay that now served as the main refugee area, Velthirans and humans were learning to live together. It wasn't always easy. The temperature that felt comfortable for humans was too warm for Velthirans. The food that humans ate casually made Velthirans sick from the smell alone, and human normal activity levels seemed impossible to the frailer aliens. Yuna had become something of a celebrity among the Velthirans. She was the one who had received their distress call, the one who had worked to translate their language, the one who had coordinated their rescue. Velthiran children followed her everywhere, fascinated by this strange human who smiled so much. "Miss Yuna, is it true humans can see in almost total darkness?" one young Velthiran asked. "Not total darkness," Yuna explained patiently. "But yes, our eyes are pretty good in low light. Humans used to hunt at dawn and dusk on Earth, so we evolved good night vision. And is it true you can run for hours without stopping?" Yuna laughed. "Well, yeah. Humans are pretty good at endurance. We used to chase animals until they got too tired to run anymore. It's called persistence hunting." The young Velthiran stared at her with wide eyes. "That's terrifying." "Maybe," Yuna admitted, "but it kept our ancestors alive." In the medical bay, Somin was still working with Prinax to understand Velthiran biology. The young Velthiran doctor was brilliant, and together they had developed treatment protocols that were actually working. "Your medicine is so aggressive," Prinax said, reviewing Somin's notes. "You use chemicals that would be considered poisons to most species." "Humans are pretty tough," Somin replied. "Earth has a lot of diseases, a lot of toxins. We evolved to handle stuff that would kill frailer species. Our immune systems are basically at war with everything all the time." Prinax shook his head in amazement. "How did you survive long enough to develop civilization?" It was a question Somin had heard several times now from different Velthirans. "I guess we're just stubborn. When Earth tried to kill us, we just refused to die. But your planet sounds horrible. Extreme temperatures, dangerous animals, diseases, natural disasters. Why didn't you leave once you developed space travel?" Somin smiled. "Because it's home. Yes, Earth is dangerous, but it's also beautiful, and it made us who we are. We don't hate our planet for being harsh. We love it for making us strong." Prinax was quiet for a long moment. "I think I'm beginning to understand humans. You see hardship as a teacher, not an enemy." "Something like that," Somin agreed. Throughout the ship, similar conversations were happening. Velthirans asking questions, trying to understand these impossible humans. And slowly, fear was turning into something else. Respect, admiration, friendship. In the ship's small galley, Taeyang was trying to explain human food to a group of fascinated Velthirans. He held up a small red pepper. "This is called a chili pepper," he explained. "Humans eat these for fun." "Fun?" one Velthiran repeated. "But sensors indicate it contains capsaicin, a defense chemical that causes pain. Yeah, it's spicy. Burns your mouth. Humans love it." The Velthiran stared at him like he had just admitted to eating poison for entertainment, which, from their perspective, he basically had. "But why would you eat something that hurts?" another Velthiran asked. Taeyang shrugged. "Makes food more interesting. Plus, after a while, you kinda start to like the burn." "Humans are insane," a Velthiran muttered, and several others made sounds of agreement. But despite the cultural differences, bonds were forming. Nari had essentially adopted a family of Velthirans who had lost everything in the evacuation. She checked on them every day, made sure they had what they needed, and helped their children feel safe. The parents watched her with grateful eyes, this human who showed such kindness to strangers. Hyun, despite her intimidating appearance in full security armor, had become a favorite of the Velthiran children. They loved to watch her train, amazed by human strength and speed. She was patient with them, answering their endless questions, even letting them try on her helmet, which was far too big for their small heads. "Miss Hyun, could you really carry all 4 of my family at the same time?" one child asked. "Probably," Hyun admitted. "Want to try?" The child's parents protested, but the children were delighted. Hyun carefully picked up all 4 young Velthirans, 1 in each arm and 2 on her shoulders, and walked around the cargo bay. The children squealed with joy. To them, it was like riding on a friendly giant. To Hyun, they weighed about as much as a heavy backpack. On the bridge, Yuna was still monitoring communications when she picked up something unusual. "Captain, I'm detecting a signal. It's encrypted, but it's using Krell protocols." Daehyun frowned. "The Krell ships we fought?" "No, sir. This is coming from ahead of us. I think there are more Krell ships between us and the station." The bridge went quiet. They had survived one encounter with the Krell, but barely. The Tajin's reach was damaged, her weapons depleted, her shields weakened. Another fight might be more than they could handle. How many ships? Daehyun asked. Yuna worked her console. I can't tell yet. But Captain, I think they're waiting for us. The Krell we fought must have called for backup. Can we go around them? Minho checked the navigation. Not without adding another week to our journey. And Captain, we don't have supplies for another week. We're already rationing everything. Daehyun stood there thinking. 40,000 Velthirans depending on them. A damaged ship. Enemies ahead. No good options. Keep monitoring those signals, he finally said. And start working on a message to the nearest human colony. If we don't make it, someone needs to know what happened here. In the cargo bay, Limseth had gathered some of the other Velthiran elders. They had been talking quietly among themselves for hours. The humans saved us, one elder said, but now we're putting them in danger again. Maybe we should surrender to the Krell if they come. Save the humans who saved us. No, Prinax said firmly. The young doctor had been listening to the conversation. That's not what humans would do. They don't give up. They don't sacrifice others to save themselves. If we surrender, we dishonor everything they've done for us. But what can we do? Limseth asked. We're not warriors. We have no weapons, no training. We're refugees. We're survivors, Prinax corrected. And we can support the humans however we can. We have engineers, doctors, scientists. We're not helpless. Limseth looked at the young doctor with new respect. You're right. The humans didn't give up on us. We won't give up on them. Word spread through the Velthiran refugees. They organized themselves, asking what they could do to help. Velthiran engineers went to assist Minho's team. Velthiran doctors worked with Soman. Others helped distribute supplies, care for children, keep order and calm. When Daehyun heard what the Velthirans were doing, he felt a warmth in his chest. These people had lost everything. They were scared and exhausted, but they were helping, because that's what communities did. On the 5th day of their journey, Yuna finally got a clear reading on the Krell ships ahead. Her hand shook as she counted them. Captain, I have a clear scan now. There are 8 Krell vessels ahead of us. They're in a blockade formation. They're not going to let us pass. 8 ships. The Tajin's reach had barely survived against 3. 8 was impossible. Estimated time until we reach them? Daehyun asked. 36 hours at current speed. 36 hours. Just over a day until they had to face an enemy they couldn't possibly defeat. Daehyun opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the captain. I won't lie to you. We have a serious problem ahead. There are 8 Krell ships between us and safety. I don't know if we can get through them, but I know we're going to try. Because that's what we do. We don't give up. We don't abandon our people. We face the impossible and we figure it out, so everyone gets some rest. Eat something. Say your prayers if you have any. In 36 hours, we're going to need every advantage we can get. In the cargo bay, the Velthirans listened to the announcement in silence. Then slowly they began to gather together. They held each other. They sang songs from their homeworld, and they prayed to whatever gods they believed in for a miracle. On the bridge, Yuna was still at her station, monitoring every frequency she could find. She was looking for help, for any ship that might answer their call, but space was empty. They were alone, or so they thought. 24 hours before they reached the Krell blockade, Yuna picked up something on long-range sensors. Multiple FTL signatures, ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Big ships. Her heart jumped into her throat. More Krell? Coming from behind to trap them? She focused her sensors, trying to identify the signatures. The 5 human ships moved into formation around the Tajin's reach like protective wolves surrounding a wounded pack member. The lead destroyer, the Danby's Honor, transmitted directly to Daehyun's ship. Captain Daehyun, this is Admiral Bora of the Terran Colonial Defense Force. Sorry we're late to the party. Your communications officer sent quite the message 4 days ago. The entire fleet wanted to come help, but we brought the fastest ships we had. Daehyun felt like he could barely breathe. Admiral, how did you even know? We're 3 weeks from the nearest human colony. Your officer Yuna sent an encrypted burst transmission right after you answered the distress call. She told us everything. A human ship protecting 40,000 refugees against Krell raiders? Son, there was no way we weren't coming. In the cargo bay, the Velthirans were watching the new arrivals on screens, trying to understand what was happening. Limseth found Prynax, who was frantically pulling up information on his datapad. "Those are warships," Prynax said, his voice shaking. "Real military vessels. The humans sent their military to protect us. But we're not human," Limseth said. "We're nothing to them. Why would they risk their military ships?" Yuna, who was standing nearby helping to calm some of the younger refugees, heard the question. She turned to face them. "Because Captain Daehyun said you were under our protection. And when a human says that, we mean it. Doesn't matter if you're human or not. You're with us now. That makes you family." The word hung in the air. Family. The Velthirans had no concept like this. In their culture, you protected your own species, your own clan. But humans, these impossible Deathworlders, had just sent military ships across vast distances of space to protect aliens they had never met. The Krell fleet detected the human ships and immediately began moving into combat formation. 8 against 6 ships, the odds were still in their favor. Or so they thought. The Krell commander transmitted on open channels. "This is Warlord Kresh of the Krell Dominion. You are interfering with our rightful salvage. Leave now and we will forget this insult." Admiral Bora's response was cold and clear. "This is Admiral Bora of the Terran Colonial Defense Force. Those refugees in that ship are under human protection. You attacked our people. You threatened civilians. You have one chance to surrender peacefully. Otherwise, you will be destroyed." Kresh laughed. "You're outnumbered, human, and we have been raiding these space lanes for a century. Your species is new to the stars. You know nothing of real combat." "Then let us educate you," Bora replied. The Krell fleet attacked first, all 8 ships firing at once. Space lit up with weapons fire, brilliant and deadly. The human ships took the hits on their shields, which flickered but held. Then Admiral Bora gave the order that would change everything. "All ships, weapons free. Show them what happens when you threaten Earth's children." What followed was the most one-sided battle the Krell had ever experienced. The human destroyers moved with a grace and speed that seemed impossible for ships their size. They dodged and weaved through weapons fire, their pilots pulling maneuvers that should have been impossible. But humans had been flying for centuries. They had learned to pilot in Earth's turbulent atmosphere, fighting gravity and weather and physics itself. Space combat, by comparison, was almost easy. The carrier launched fighters, small craft that moved like angry hornets, swarming the Krell ships. Each fighter was piloted by a human who had trained their entire lives for moments like this. They were precise, deadly, efficient. Within 10 minutes, 2 Krell ships were destroyed. Within 20, 3 more were crippled and drifting. The remaining 3 were trying desperately to retreat. But human ships were faster. On the Tyjan's reach, everyone watched in stunned silence. The Velthirans couldn't believe what they were seeing. The Krell, the terror of the frontier, were being systematically dismantled by human forces. "This is impossible," Limseth whispered. "The Krell have raided for generations. They've defeated entire fleets. How are the humans doing this?" Prynax was reading through human military history on his datapad, and what he found terrified him. They've been at war since before they left their planet. Thousands of years of constant conflict. They've refined warfare into an art form. The Krell are raiders, bullies, but the humans? The humans are actual warriors. One Krell ship attempted a desperate boarding action against the Danby's honor. It was a mistake. Human Marines met them in the corridors, and the Krell learned what human soldiers were like in close combat. Fast, brutal, trained, to fight in every environment imaginable. The boarding party was eliminated in 4 minutes. The last 3 Krell ships finally managed to break free and jump to FTL, fleeing at maximum speed. Admiral Bora let them go. "Let them run," she said calmly. "Let them tell the others what happened here. Let every raider in this sector know that humans protect their own." The battle was over. The Tyjan's reach and its 40,000 refugees were safe. In the cargo bay, the Velthirans erupted in celebration. Children cried with relief. Adults hugged each other and the humans around them. They had witnessed something incredible. These humans, these Deathworlders, had crossed vast distances to protect strangers, had fought and won against impossible odds, had shown a loyalty and courage that the Velthirans had never imagined possible. Admiral Bora's ship docked with the Tyjan's reach, and she came aboard personally to meet Daehyun and his crew. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen many battles. When she saw the crowded corridors full of refugees, her expression softened. "You did good work here, Captain," she said to Daehyun. 40,000 lives saved. That's something to be proud of. We just did what needed to be done, Daehyun replied. That's the human way, Bora agreed. She turned to address the refugees who had gathered to see the human admiral. People of Velthira, you're safe now. We're going to escort you to the nearest Galactic Council station. You'll be taken care of. You have my word. Limseth stepped forward, bowing low in the Velthiran gesture of deepest respect. Admiral, we owe you a debt we can never repay. You came to save us aliens you have never met. Why? Bora smiled. Because Captain Daehyun said you were under our protection. And humanity has a simple rule. We don't leave our people behind. Ever. And when you're with us, you're our people. The journey to the Galactic Council station took another week, but it was peaceful. The human fleet surrounded the Tajin's Reach like an honor guard. No more raiders appeared. Word was already spreading across the frontier. The humans had arrived, and they were not to be trifled with. When they finally arrived at the station, the sight that greeted them was overwhelming. The station's entire administration had turned out to welcome the refugees. News of the rescue had spread across the galaxy. The story of one human survey ship that had saved 40,000 aliens, then fought off raiders, then been rescued by their own fleet, had captured imaginations everywhere. Galactic Council representatives were waiting to meet with Admiral Bora and Captain Daehyun. The council chamber was full, representatives from dozens of species all wanting to understand what had happened. Prynex had compiled his documentation, everything he had witnessed and recorded during their time with the humans. He presented it to the council, and his report was damning in its honesty. The humans are not what we thought, he told the assembled representatives. We classified them as a fringe species, barely worth notice. But they are Deathworlders in the truest sense, strong, durable, capable of incredible endurance. But more than that, they have something we have never seen before. They have loyalty that extends beyond their own species. They protect the weak, they refuse to abandon those in need, and they are willing to fight impossible odds to keep their word. The council erupted in debate. Some species were terrified. These humans were clearly warriors, powerful and dangerous. What if they decided to conquer instead of protect? Others were amazed. The frontier regions had been lawless for decades. The Krell and other raiders had operated with impunity because no council species could stop them. But the humans had stopped them. Easily. Finally, the council chairman called for order. Captain Daehyun, you and your crew are here. The council would like to hear from you directly. Why did you risk everything to save these refugees? Daehyun stood before the council, a simple survey captain suddenly facing the most powerful beings in the galaxy. He thought about what to say, how to explain humanity to these aliens. We received a distress call, he said simply. People needed help. That's all the reason we needed. Earth taught us that survival means working together, that we're stronger when we protect each other. It doesn't matter that the Velthirans aren't human. They needed help and we could provide it. That's what good people do. But you risked your ship, your crew, your lives, the chairman pressed. For strangers. They weren't strangers after we answered their call, Daehyun replied. They were people under our protection, and humans don't abandon people under our protection. The council was silent for a long moment. Then the chairman spoke again. The Galactic Council has a proposal. The frontier regions need protection. They need someone who can stand against raiders and pirates, someone strong enough to enforce peace. We would like to offer humanity a position as frontier guardians. Your ships would patrol the outer regions,